Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet. This review uses the Revell 125 scale 69 Dodge Charger Daytona kit number 85-2824 as the base model for our Dom's F&F 6 Superbird conversion. In the Fast and Furious franchise show number 6, Dom is seen racing a one-of-a-kind Dodge Charger Daytona through the streets, and it's known to everybody on the set and afterwards as Dom's Superbird. We decided to have a little fun with our model, and this was built to replicate a one-of-a-kind car that was built for the Fast and Furious 6 movie. And it, of course, is a Dodge Charger, but everybody called it the Superbird, even though it was not the Plymouth version. But the car is first seen when Ty Parker and Luke Hobbs they visit a car auction, and then it's seen later in the Team Safe house after it appeared that he had bought all the cars from the auction. So Dom's driving it during a street race with Letty, and with a tank chase in Spain where it gets damaged when the front end hits a rail. Now, just so you know, there'll be some things that we're going to do here that are not normal modeling, so it takes a little patience and some advanced skills. The rear spoiler for the real car and the front of the nose were both made shorter to give it a different look than the original Daytona Chargers, and it looks much more sleek and well finished to me. The rear end is completely refabbed, and the headlights were opened up in front. And then MagnaFlow had built a custom exhaust system, and it goes through the rear interior of the car and exits in a port that's cut into the bodywork right behind the doors. Now, they also, on the movie version, they use a Chevy LS3 Fuelie and to replace the Mopar, but I stuck with the Mopar motor because it fits perfectly, and I thought it would keep it all Mopar. And also, Brembo had made some massive brakes for the car and dual calipers. And then the sheet metal, of course, inside was made for racing. And there's just two race seats and a shifter and some gauges with a roll bar there. So we tried to replicate most of that the best that we could. And I started off with the base Revell kit that had the more detail than the AMT version. And it's a skill level 3 kit, which is well detailed. And you can make, of course, a stock Daytona out of it. It's got 150 pieces and includes a photo etch grill. It's molded in white, chrome, clear, and clear red, and it has vinyl tires. The decals are water slide with 3 color stripe options and a nice set of instructions. But overall, as far as the kit went, assembly was easy. The fit and finish was great, and I'll be doing modifications and will be emphasizing that in this particular review. Here are the kit's contents, and we'll be using mostly Model Masters liquid cement for glue, sometimes super glue for fragile parts, and white glue or crystal clear for any of the windshield and window type pieces. Always remember to follow the manufacturer safety and use guidelines when using any of the products that you hear or see used in the review. Here are the kit's decals, and as you can see, there's color options for different color, for your vehicle. So the register is very good, and you'll want to use, if you do make a stock version, you'll want to use some of the aftermarket setting solution to help these decals conform to the body. Now, we had to look out of the box, so to speak, to produce this model. So as you can see, here are some of the aftermarket and other parts we've used. There's a roll bar cage kit there from the Dukes of Hazzard kit, and you can see some of the RTS wheels available, as well as just a stock NASCAR dashboard. But you'll be able to follow along. We'll tell you what's going on, but your parts box will be your friend. Construction will start with the motor, and as you can see, with this 25-piece motor, why I chose the Revell kit, because of its detail. It's a very nice Mopar motor. So first we'll assemble the block heads, valve covers, the valley, the intake and the timing cover, add the oil pan and the transmission, and then the motor and the bell housing is painted orange with a steel transmission, and the belt, power steering, starter, fan, coil, and air cleaner are black. The oil filter is white with orange, with an orange mount, and the exhausts are steel colored. Now assemble all but the exhaust, making sure that you scrape off any paint or chrome so that you get a good joint for your glue joint. I wanted to add a little extra detail to the motor, so I used a pre-wired distributor that you can buy, available at hobby shops and online. And then I just drilled the hole out for the shaft and installed it with some super glue. And then I drilled out some holes on the locations for the heads, and I cut a small piece of black wire for the boots and slid it onto each one. And then match up the wires using a wiring diagram for the motor to fit there. Now slide each wire into place with a boot at the hole to make it look correct, and then super glue all the wires in place. Add the coil to the center wire and cut it off sitting on the motor. The carburetor was gold tone, and the air cleaner, of course, a semi-gloss black, and also the decal is applied there and makes it look very realistic. It's a nice looking motor rendition. But as you can see here, the exhausts have been added to the manifolds, and then both views here can show you the detail and paint for the motor. Now we can turn our attention to the interior, and these are the parts that you'll need together and use. These are the ones that I used of the kit's parts for the interior, and they include the floor pan, the firewall, heater core, pedals, and the rear support. You assemble all of those, and then the roll cage is from the Dukes of Hazzard kit, but you can make that out of simply out of sprue. It's just easier if you have some parts boxes and there's a roll cage in there to adapt. And it'll need a little fit adjustment rather than just to build it, because this is somewhat a custom interior. So it's best to build it to fit inside the roof of the car and not fit the interior of the body. Now the seats can be added, and then once the roll cage is fit and ready, assemble and fit it into the interior. I used the stock door panels for a pattern and cut out flat styrene sheet to the size of the door panels, and added some scribing for the interior of the actual door opening joint there. And now assemble the paint panels and paint the complete assembly for the interior flat black. And the dash I used was just a generic NASCAR kit, pretty much looking a lot, a lot like the one that was in the Dom's car itself. And then paint that flat black and detail the gauges, and add the steering wheel and install that, and then add the shifter to the floor. Now we'll begin work on the body, and this is where some of the advanced modeling will come into play. Now the body had multiple changes to it based on the movie's car, and the nose gets shortened and slightly, and the rear spoiler is shortened also, and the nose is kind of reworked on the real car, but by and large I simply added those pieces and then used some putty to make it appear as if they had been customized to that particular one-to-one car. So assemble the rear panel to the body, and then add the core support. Okay, so we're going to pretty much rework the appearance of the rear body, and we're going to use some putty for that. And you can pick the putty that you're familiar with and using to provide the results here, but I used the 3M Bondo body putty. So just build it up and shape your bumper and rear panel to replicate the pick from the one-to-one car here, as you see. And it's going to take several applications and a lot of sanding to get it just about right. Now we'll assemble the grille and fill the nose and cut out the headlight panels. And I used a small styrene rod to create a rib in the center to match the hood. And you might need to sand and shape that to size for a good appearance. I used some thin cardstock to make the shape of the headlight buckets as closely as I could to the movie car. And then I traced around the outside of that to fit them into the nose. And this is kind of a trial and error. And once I had the correct fit and look for the buckets, I taped the buckets with masking tape and used some tacky glue to hold them in place behind there. Once the buckets are in place and fit there, and the new centerline rib is the way you like it, go ahead and then primer the whole nose section. Examine it after it's dry, and then sand and fill as repeated until it gets to be just the way you like it. Glue the nose onto the car, and then use some putty to remove the body line at the seams below the hood area. Now we can glue the rear wing spoiler into place there, and note that primer is paint, so you should scrape a little bit off of there to get a good glue contact for a nice joint. So here's the body, and once you're happy with all the body work and repairs that need to be done, you can remove all the moldings with some sandpaper or scrape those off. All the side marker lights are filled in. The rear panel gets built, and the nose is built, and then primer the whole car to check your work. Then wet sand it all, rinse, let it air dry, and check all the repairs and do anything else as needed, and get it rinsed and dried again. And then just keep examining your car until you get it the way you like it. First, I painted the body and the hood, as you can see in the panel pieces here, in a silver base, and it's going to give the maroon a little more brightness. And when you use a base with a metallic, you can boost the color of the top coat and kind of enhance its reflectivity. I've used a maroon metallic paint. You can find that both Testors and Tamiya make a nice maroon color that will work well here, and so I sprayed the inside and the out with it, and just start with a couple of tack coats, and then you can add a little bit heavier coats, but not too heavy, until that you get a good even sheen over the entire vehicle. Now we can install the window glass, and I use some white glue to glue those into place, and I also use some clear styrene to replicate the side window glass because they're made of plexiglass, as most racing vehicles are. So I just cut those out to fit. You can use some cardboard stock to get the shape of those, and give yourself a little extra to glue the pieces on. So get these components and pieces staged, and you can see the chassis there. You're going to paint that flat black. The radiator and shield get assembled and painted flat black, and the horns and the hose also. So now we'll install the interior into the body, and the rear tail lights into the body, and then use some good strong glue there, perhaps some epoxy, to make sure that the interior tub stays in place. Now add the chassis into place onto the interior tub and fit it into the body from the rear end first. And I'll use my favorite brand of super glue to just add a little touch there to where I've scraped off some paint on the glue points, and it'll sit right tight into position. Grab the suspension and exhaust pieces here, and the exhaust is a custom fit. It goes into the body behind the seats, and I just used the existing pipes and cut them off to created the bends there to make it seem like they go back into the chassis. So the paint for that is steel colored, and then install those into position. So the front suspension is assembled and painted black, and the shocks are red and installed with a touch of super glue. So get out the pieces for the rear suspension you see here, and these will be assembled and then painted black, and the shocks painted red, and the drive shaft is also black. Assemble the drive shaft to the motor, and then add the suspension and the shocks into place. So add the spoiler to the front pan there, which was painted earlier, and the spoiler gets painted a flat black and installed. So to replicate the version that was in the movie, I had to go to the aftermarket for some rims and tires, and the fit is a little different, and you have to make it fit the situation based on your vehicle. So using that, I fit that to the rims and the brakes that I have, and I assembled the rims and the tires and super glued the brakes to the rim backs. Then I added the rim kit mount to the brake and then mounted the kit rim mounts inside that. So here is a close-up of the method and manner in which I mounted the rear tires, and also a photo of the front so that you can see how those are placed into position and mounted to the spindles there. So you can see she's really coming together, and that completes the build of the chassis. And with the tires on it, it's looking like a real vehicle at this point. So there's just some more minor stuff left to do. So we'll use these pieces that you see here and paint the battery and the hoses black. The booster is black with a steel master cylinder and a copperish top, and then the wiper motor is silver. Now the top of the water reservoir is black. Install all of the underhood parts and finish the underhood assembly. Gather the small pieces here, the handles and wipers, etc., and scrape the chrome from the glue joints and install those into place. Those are the wipers, the door handles, the gas cap, and the mirror. Now for some more of the movie version stuff. Using a set of retainers from a rim kit, I made the exhaust ports. I cut some ovals out of the styrene, and then I covered it with some of the metal foil product that's available. Paint the retainers steel and glue them into place. Then add to the rear panels behind the doors on the car, and the thin strip of styrene is window trim for the door and rear windows. Cut it to fit and paint it black. Then cut the remaining clear styrene to make your headlight panels. And so here's a photo of the front end, the front view. You can see the headlight panels there, just placed over the buckets that we made earlier, and you can even see there's still some glue drying on the driver's side there, but they'll be looking nice and clear once that glue dries, and just like the customized version of the car. Also, the back end, of course, is very much a makeover and completely changed from stock with a nice smooth sleek finish. As you can see in the photo, it makes for a pretty cool looking movie car. As you can see here, you'll have just a pile of stuff left over from the kit for your next out of the box kit fun build. So don't ever throw anything away. Store it for later and identify it if necessary so that you know where it came from and where you can use it. Well, there you have it. This was a good build all by itself. And we added a little complexity with the changes that we made to replicate the gorgeous maroon Fast and Furious 6 car that Dominic used, and with some of the add-ons we had to make some modifications, but as you can see, it's just a beautiful model, and it'll be a real head turner. I don't think this was ever kitted, and I don't know why not. It's just a standout looking vehicle, but if you want to, you can make one for yourself and have some model kit fun. So if I were you, I'd buy one, mix it up, and put one on your shelf. Well, we hope you liked this premium step-by-step model kit fun review, and so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook and our website rightonreplicas.com. Thanks.